My name is Nicolas Bruno. I'm a New York-based artist. I work in the mediums of photography, sculpture, costume design. I make most of my work based on my experiences with sleep paralysis. It's a sleep disorder that I have. I wake up pretty much every other night where I, I'm in my bed, I wake up and I'm completely frozen. I can't move my body. And I start to see these horrific visualizations that appear in my room. And I'll see these shadow-like figures walking through my room. Sometimes they'll be above my bed. And I just have to lay there and hope that the dream will end at some point. I went through this through my pretty much my entire life. And I've used art as my therapy for it. It helped me figure out what I was experiencing. It helped me connect with other people who have my sleep disorder. And it really just set me off on a journey to figure out what's happening in this world between being awake and asleep. And I
Yeah.
explore it through my artwork.
So about when did that start happening to you?
I remember having my first episode when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and I was in my childhood bedroom laying there. And I remember waking up, not being able to move, and this figure walked by my bed. It wasn't necessarily scary, it was just more alarming. I maybe thought it was my mom or somebody walking through the room, but it always stuck with me, that memory. I'm like, why did that happen? And then throughout my childhood, random times I'd wake up and feel a presence while I can't move. And then when I turned maybe 15 years old in high school, I started experiencing pretty much every single night. But my art teacher was really like almost like my therapist. And I told him about what was happening with me, and he told me to keep a journal, started sketching out all these things that were happening. And before I knew it, I had a basis of ideas and characters and this whole story of what's going on in this weird world of sleep. And from there, I just started making these self-portraits, and that really just elevated my self-esteem, and it gave me an understanding of what was going on.
So I've never experienced sleep paralysis, and I think a lot of people watching this probably haven't either. So it's like you are awake, but also dreaming, and also you can't move.
Exactly. So basically what happens is you'll wake up during REM sleep when your dream starts to happen. People who have sleep paralysis will wake up because there's an abnormality in how we go into REM sleep. Generally, it takes maybe like 30 to 40 minutes for somebody to go into REM sleep. With people who have sleep paralysis or have atypical narcolepsy like I have, we go into it within maybe like 8 to 14 minutes. So it's a rapid trajectory into REM sleep, and that can sometimes cause a disorder where you wake up, but your body's still asleep, and you're stuck between this realm of like, can I get up and move around, or am I actually dreaming? Am I actually asleep? It's very mystifying, and it really just it becomes confusing at times because it's so real. Like I'm just laying in my bed and I'm seeing all these things happen right in my room. Like they're able to manipulate the door can swing open, or sometimes I'll actually leave my body in an out of body experience and try to leave my room and then lapse back into a regular dream. It's not fun,
Wow.
and it's extremely disturbing at times, and it can really mess with your everyday life. Really, art is my therapy and also my voice, and I'm able to speak universally with people about these experiences, talk to them about what they see, and it just made me feel less alone.
Yeah. So through doing this, and we'll talk about the deck in a second,
Sure.
have you met other people that have similar experiences to you? Like people reaching out and saying, oh, this happens to me?
I get messages from people around the world in different languages, all speaking about their experiences with sleep paralysis. And it's so funny because a lot of the symbols that appear in my dreams and people that I've talked to just here in New York, they appear throughout all cultures across the world. Like people will see like a man called the hatted man, or they'll see the old hag, which is another stereotypical figure that you'll see across the world. Like somebody in Germany would say that to me. I'm like, wow, how, like from all the things that we consume through media and such, how are we all having these very similar experiences? Right.
Are there any other common archetypes in people's sleep paralysis dreams and experiences?
An incubus, which is like a demon that sits on your chest and it almost feels like it's draining your life force. Shadow-like hands that just emerge from nowhere. Um, there's across cultures, people are seeing the same thing, even throughout history. Like I've read a lot of documentations of sleep paralysis in maybe the 1800s. You'll see similar things in those documentations to things that people are seeing now. So it's really a uniquely human thing that we're all seeing. And through my art, I want to get to the bottom of this. Like, why are we all experiencing similar stuff across the board? Is it something supernatural? Is it something in our DNA? I don't know. But I think, you know, with my lifetime and with my skills, I want to devote the time to figuring out what's going on behind the scenes.
I think hearing the way you explain it, it kind of makes sense how then you connected sleep paralysis to tarot, because if your sleep paralysis means you have a really intimate, like frighteningly intimate experience with your own dreams and your own symbolism, it kind of makes sense that you'd want to explore that through an already existing medium of symbolism. So could you talk a little bit about where the idea came from and how the whole process began?
During quarantine, I didn't know what was going to happen with my career because my gallery closed, all of my income streams have closed, and being a self-employed artist, it's like, wow, what do I do now that the world is closed, and what could happen in a year's time, you know? So I didn't, you know, maybe the world could have ended. So I was just like, I'm going to spend the next months just devoting myself to art and what I love. And I dove into some of my childhood experiences, and I went into tarot. I'm like, oh, maybe I could explore this a little bit more. In quarantine, I had all the time in the world. I'm like, I might as well just give it a shot and maybe start making some concepts for it and sketching out concepts. So I just dove right in and started researching all the archetypes in tarot, the history behind it, some of the characters, some of the more prolific artists of it. And that inspired me to start looking into my own journals, pairing those archetypes together and weaving this series called the Somnia Tarot. I didn't know it was going to happen.
Yeah, nobody knew.
Yes.
So while the rest of us were baking bread, you were designing like amazing art.
So yeah, I just locked myself in my studio for a full month, researched, and then I just started sketching and sketching. And through those sketches, I started making the costumes, designing some of the sculptural elements of what I was going to do. And before I knew it, I was out there in the marshlands, out there on the shorelines, and I was making these photographs.
How long was the process of shooting the deck?
So I started shooting, I think, in March of 2020, and I finished in late November of 2020. So I devoted pretty much every single day of that span to creating sketches, costumes, props, photographs, designing the deck, because my goal was to launch it before the end of the year, which I was able to do. And it was probably the most difficult project I've ever done in my entire life, because I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I'm like, I'm sketching out. I'm like, wait, where am I going to get a horse? Wait, where am I going to get all of these wooden pails from?
Where did you get a horse?
I found a company. I live on Long Island in New York. I found a company that makes life-size fake animals. Like they do like for displays and for parties and things like that.
I would have never guessed. I was convinced that was a real horse under there.
I didn't want to bring in a real horse, first, just from the logistics standpoint of it. And two, I don't want to put an animal through any stress just for the sake of art. So I got this resin horse and I transported it and carried it all around Long Island and set it up on the shorelines, and people thought I was crazy out there with but it helped me save time, and it helped me be independent. And I work independently for my shots. If it's not just me working, it's maybe a close friend is there to spot me if I can't see, if I'm like blindfolded for one of the photographs. Because
wow, so is it you in most of the pictures?
all the male characters within the series are me. They're all self-portraits. Even when there's multiples, I use a layering process when I photograph. So I set up my camera on a tripod and it shoots an image every 3 seconds. And I go out in front of the camera and I do the performance, as I like to call it. And I become different characters. I change my costume all while my camera is shooting. And then I can go through the whole camera roll and figure out which images I need. And I can layer them on top of each other. And then I have a full image that maybe would have taken a huge production crew to make, or like hiring actors and such, but I can do it all by myself in that regard. The process of creating the Somnia Tarot, what I did was, along with my research that I did, I dove right into my dream journals and tried to pull symbols that I've experienced, symbols that I've communicated within my previous works, and marry the two together in order to tell a new story of the classic tarot. So for the Tower, for example, I actually have my book here. Maybe I can pull it up.
Yeah, the Tower card is stunning.
So that one was probably the most, that one resonated the most with me when I created the series. And it came to me like this when I looked at my journal. I brought in this dollhouse that I actually had to rebuild it because I had burned the first one for the image that I created. So I rebuilt it for this image. So you can see it's a burning dollhouse that's tied to my back there, and it's on fire, and he's in the middle of the raging storm. The waves are smashing against the shoreline. I was able to take that old symbol of mine, which was the burning dollhouse, and apply it to the tower, where instead of the traditional large stone tower that's getting struck by a lightning bolt, I have now a different symbol, more modern symbol, which is the home on my back, which the home could maybe symbolize maybe your belongings or like your responsibilities, or even just like your family too. Everything rests on your shoulders there, and it's on fire, and you're still crawling, trying to get through all the most terrible stuff until the storm fades. The symbols that I portray within my work are sometimes literal, or sometimes when I'm creating, I pack an emotion into a prop, or maybe a feeling I'll express through the environment that I'm portraying. Like the feeling of drowning, for example, in sleep paralysis, I'll use maybe water or a pond, or maybe the waves of an ocean. If I have anxiety within the dream, I'll express it through fire. That, for example, on the dollhouse is burning.
So I imagine your talk is probably going to go into a bit more detail on the creation of the deck. So the name of the talk you're doing for us is the Somnia Tarot, Born from Dreams and Nightmares. So can you just give us a little bit of a flavor of what the talk will address, and maybe what can people take away from it?
Sure. Yeah. In my talk, I'm really looking forward to diving into the symbolism, the behind the scenes of creating the Somnia Tarot. It was a huge project, the biggest project I've ever done. And there's so many little details that maybe are missed just by looking at the images themselves. There's a lot of stuff that, like, for example, the sketches that went on behind the scenes just to create these photographs. And I'm looking forward to diving into those, showing some of the hidden symbols within the deck that maybe people haven't seen. I'll just share one now, where we have the 10 of Cups here. We have the streams are intersecting, and they create an X, which is the number 10 for the suit. So there's like smaller symbols that end up appearing within the deck, and I really want to share those with people, and maybe it'll enhance their experience while using the cards.
What would you say was the biggest challenge for you in creating the deck?
I think the most difficult part about creating the Somnia Tarot was respecting the tradition in a way that was helpful to the tarot community. I didn't want to just create something that was like self-serving or just looked cool. I wanted it to be not just an art piece, but something that's functional and respects tradition. So that's why I took a really long time and just dove into those sketches, really just formatting, figuring out how they're going to look and how they're going to respect tradition. Besides that, just going out there and becoming the model for all of these characters and living through pretty much all of the cards. For example, the Hanged Man, I had to hang myself upside down on this structure. It was really difficult to do and kind of scary, but it's really just an unforgettable experience to be able to live through the major arcana, become the Hanged Man, and hang there and understand what it would be like to be that character or that archetype. It just allowed me to be immersed in the world of tarot in a completely unique way.
And it's so amazing that what was for you a kind of therapeutic experience is now this amazing deck that other people can use and connect with. So, yeah. I mean, how cool is that?
I really hope, I mean, I've had some messages from people who use it in their art therapy practice or just in their regular therapy practice, and it's been a good tool for them. And people who use it for shadow work too, that's a helpful thing. I'm really, really excited to speak to everybody, meet everyone.
Well, Nicolas, it's been an absolute pleasure. I cannot wait to see you in November. This is going to be
Thanks.
so much fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you.